Hello my dear students, how are you? I hope you all are doing well and staying safe indoors. Here I am again with a video session for class 7, subject Social Science, and name of the lesson, The Creation of an Empire, from the history part. Students, in our previous classroom sessions, we have learned about the different sultans of Delhi. So, under the sultans we have studied about the establishment of Delhi Sultanate, the different dynasties, decline and disintegration of the Sultanate. In today's session, we will discuss about the growth and expansion of the Mughal Empire and what kind of relation it maintained with other rulers, what was the type of administration under the Mughals, and also what were the agrarian or agricultural relations under the Mughals. Students, in the previous lesson, we learned that the initial years of the 16th century saw the disintegration of the Delhi Sultanate. Sometimes this came in the form of rebellions by the ambitious nobles of the Lodi dynasty, and sometimes it marked the rise of regional and provincial states like Kashmir in the north, Marwar in the northwest, Vijayanagar and Bahmani in the south, and a number of such other dynasties flourished during that time. Thus, this period was marked by the absence of any central authority who could hold the provinces under its control. And more than that, the small kingdoms were constantly at war with each other. They always fought for supremacy. Thus, there was political disunity everywhere. The last ruler of Delhi Sultanate, Ibrahim Lodi of the Afghan legacy, was an arrogant ruler and he treated the Afghan nobles with little respect. So, this we have read in our earlier chapter about the arrogance of Ibrahim Lodi. So, what was the function of the nobles during that time? The nobles acted as a middleman between the common people and the royal family or the ruler. Thus, the nobles who were in the position of governance of different provinces declared independence from the Delhi Sultanate. Under such circumstances, Daulat Khan, the governor of Punjab, invited Babur to invade or to attack India, and this led to the foundation of Mughal dynasty in India. So, let us now begin our discussion about the foundation of Mughal dynasty in India under Babur from 1526 to 1530, Humayun from 1530 to 1540, and again from 1555 to 1556, and Akbar from 1556 to 1605. So, Babur was the founder of the Mughal dynasty. Before that, we will have a quick discussion on the lineage of Babur or his ancestry. Babur was the descendant of Timur from his father's side. Who was Timur? Timur was a Turco-Mongol conqueror who founded the Timurid Empire in and around modern-day Afghanistan, Iran and Central Asia and parts of India. And from his mother's side, Babur was the descendant of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was the founder of the Mongol Empire. Thus, Mughals were the descendant of the Mongols. Mughal is the Persian word for Mongol. In 1504, Babur seized Kabul in Afghanistan He succeeded in capturing Kandahar and Badakhshan both in Afghanistan in 1522. So, by 1524, he was able to make his position firm in Afghanistan and was ready to invade India. So, there were some campaigns of Babur in capturing India. Two very significant battles were fought by Babur. First was Battle of Panipat. During the conquest of India, Babur conquered Sialkot and Punjab without any resistance because the overconfident attitude of Ibrahim Lodi. So, as we know that he was an arrogant and overconfident emperor. The two sides met at Panipat. Babur won the first battle of Panipat, which paved the way for establishment of the Mughal Empire in India. Next battle, the Battle of Khanua. Rana Sanga, the mighty ruler of Mewar, made efforts to form a coalition force comprising the Rajput kingdoms to resist Babur. But in spite of the brave efforts by Rana and his allies, they were defeated in the Battle of Khanua in 1527. In between 1527 to 1530, Babur was successful in capturing a number of other regions of India. He died in the year 1530. So now we will discuss about Humayun. So Humayun was nominated by Babur as his successor, which means after Babur's death, Humayun would sit on the throne. He had to face several difficulties right from his becoming the ruler. Firstly, following the Turco-Mongol practice, he divided the empire among his half-brothers, but the brothers remained dissatisfied with their portions. They forcibly captured some parts of the empire from Humayun, which had an adverse effect on him. Next, the hostility of the Afghans. The Afghans who were ruling Delhi a few years back, which implies the rulers of the Sultanate dynasty, still had ambition to capture power again, and in this process, Bahadur Shah of Gujarat, who was an Afghan, conquered Malwa. This forced Humayun to enter into a treaty with the Afghan Sher Khan Suri, according to which Sher Khan Suri gained complete control over Banaras. Humayun failed to estimate the growing power of Sher Khan Suri, who defeated Humayun in the Battle of Chausa in 1539 and in the Battle of Kannauj in 1540. Humayun fled to Persia and took refuge with the king. So, here we will do a little discussion on the life of Sher Khan Suri, which who later came to be known as Sher Shah Suri. So, after Humayun fled to Persia, Sher Shah Suri, he took control. He was a commander in the earlier he was a commander in the Mughal army under Babur and then the governor of Bihar. In 1537, he established the Suri dynasty in the northern part of the Indian subcontinent. Sher Shah Suri was a very capable administrator who issued the first rupiah, and coins had his name on them. Most of his administrative tactics were made along the lines of Alauddin Khilji, including his army. So, Alauddin Khilji, we have already read that he was a very great administrator. So, Sher Khan Suri was a capable military and civil administrator just like Alauddin Khilji. He made a number of reforms or changes in the field of agriculture and revenue. administration which implies tax collection. Tax means money that people have to pay to the government for how much people earn or how much property they have. So, during Sher Shah Suri's reign, land revenue or tax was fixed. In order to encourage trade, excellent roads were built, including Grand Trunk Road, which was built between India and Pakistan to reduce distance. Sher Shah Suri died in 1545 and his son Islam Shah in 1554. This made the Afghan Empire weak and Humayun was successful in recapturing Kandahar, Badakhshan, Agra and Delhi, established himself Emperor of India. However, Humayun died in 1556. So, our next emperor in line is Akbar. Akbar at the age of 13 was made governor of Punjab by his father Humayun. After his father's death, the Mughal dynasty lost Delhi and Agra to Hemu, a Hindu minister of Sultan Adil Shah. So, Sultan was the nephew of Sher Shah who wanted to re-establish the Afghan supremacy. But Hemu wanted to claim the throne for himself and become the emperor. However, Akbar defeated and killed Hemu in the second battle of Panipat in 1556. As Akbar was too young to administer the empire, Bairam Khan, his chief minister, acted as his guardian and guided him, as a result of which Akbar's authority or power became more strong. When Akbar turned 18, he took charge over the administration, and Bairam Khan undertook a journey to a religious place. So, from here started Akbar's consolidation of position, that means his power became strong. Between 1550 to 1576, the Mughal Empire under him expanded across Upper Ganga Valley. He conquered, which means he took control over Gujarat, Bengal, Odisha, Kashmir, Kandahar, Kabul, etc. In the Deccan, which implies in the southern part of India, he was able to capture Khandes and parts of Ahmednagar of Maharashtra and Berar in Madhya Pradesh. So, let us now make a case study of Akbar's policies. First is Rajput policy. Akbar did not try to reduce the power and authority of the Rajput rulers or other local rulers. He appointed them to the important positions and gave equal status to the Rajputs. They were given complete freedom to follow their religion. Even Akbar's Rajput queen were given freedom in observance of their faith. So, next policy is the religious policy of Akbar. Akbar realized that in order to govern or to rule such a large empire, he will have to win the confidence of the people. He was tolerant towards his Hindu subjects and abolished the jizya. So, jizya was a form of tax that the non-Muslims had to pay. His Ibadat Khana or the hall of worship witnessed the presence of scholars from different religions. He formulated his own religion called Dini Ilahi or the divine faith, which aimed at achieving peace, tolerance and harmony, but he did not impose it on anyone. And lastly, the land revenue of Akbar. So, revenue or tax was fixed after assessing or calculating the average production and prices of the last 10 years. So people have to give 1/3 of the produce of the state, which means if you divide your total production into 3 parts, then 1 part you will have to give to the state. So in the form of cash, means money or kind. Loans or financial help were given to the farmers. So with the policies of Akbar, we will stop our discussion here. In our further session, we would discuss the later part of the lesson. For that, stay tuned and have a good day.